This episode is brought to you by Palmera Travel Group. Our travel advisors will help you to plan any and all travel from A to Z, including bookish travel, travel to locations found in or inspired by your favorite books. Whether you like to travel solo or want to bring a group of friends, we help you manage all aspects of your trip. Ready to plan your next bookish adventure? Contact Palmera Travel today at www.palmeratravel.com. That's www.palmeratravel.com. Or on Instagram at Palmera Travel, Palmhera Travel. Palmera Travel. We plan, you travel.
Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave. 6 feet deep under, but my body won't decay. Cause my messages are
Well, welcome to the bonus episode of the What They Wrote podcast, the podcast where we usually sit down with authors and discuss those books that inspired them. Today's a little bit different, though, because it is a bonus episode, so we'll see what we got today. My name is Whitney Welsh Gibbs. I am the author of the Lucas Tate duology, Broken Anchors, and the upcoming Land of Frost, which is coming in less than a month, in just a couple weeks. And this is my co-host, the person that can tell you what book to read and where, Megan Brebner. Hey, Meg.
Hello.
Well, today is another bonus episode, which is really exciting. We love
Yay.
these. It's just us today here. But before we start, let's get our one and only housekeeping item out of the way. Well, instead of first and foremost, like I said, we only have one because we will not be spoiling today. We're going to try very hard to not spoil anything today on this podcast. So, our only housekeeping item is adult content. As always, this is a podcast created by and for adults, and as such, there's going to be language on this episode. I'm pretty sure of it. So if that is not something that you enjoy or that you can handle, we'll see you some other time. So with that, Meg, how you doing?
You know, I would lie and say I'm doing good, but this week has been especially stressful, not gonna lie. But I'm happy to be here now because I love talking about books and I love talking about you and I love talking about us. So it works out well.
Yeah, it's been kind of a rough week. I know for me, I was like sick all week.
Yeah.
Like really sick. I had a sinus infection, so I was actually dying, laying around trying to get through
literally
the day.
dying.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just been hectic. And Meg, you're going on a trip soon, huh?
Yeah, and they really, when they say you have to earn your vacation, they like really mean it. I'm supposed to leave on Monday, so in just a couple days, I am going to Jamaica on a travel agent trip to do some research on one of the resort brands there. So I'll be there for almost a week, but oh my God, like the week leading up to going on vacation has never been more stressful. Like there's just like everybody and their mother needs something. Everybody wants something done last minute from you. Like I haven't packed. I've barely got like my brows done, my hair done, like just like the little things I need to do before I go on a trip. I maybe have all of my toiletries packed. I have no idea. So, and this weekend is not slowing down at all. I genuinely am so overwhelmed, but I am so excited to go on the trip and just be on a plane and then be on a beach, which is where I belong.
Yes. And you know what? Like, it feels like a punishment almost when we go on trips because it's like so much that you have to do before, but it'll be worth it. You're going to get to relax, chill out, have your first vacation of the year.
Even though this is a work trip, technically, I will still have a great time. But this is a work trip. This is a travel agent trip where I will be held to certain expectations, put on a schedule, but I will be on a beach in Jamaica. So I shan't complain.
So anybody wants a recommendation of what beach is the best to read on after Megan gets back? She'll have those Jamaica recommendations for you. So hit her up.
It's very true. If you ever have any questions about Jamaica, specifically the Ocho Rios region where I will be visiting, please let me know.
Yeah, sounds good.
What else is going on? What else is new?
Oh, you know what?
That's not book related because we're going to get into that.
That's not book related. Not much, actually. Unlike you, I'm not going on a vacation yet. I would love to.
No, but we're planning ours. We're starting to put our vacation into motion. Again, working vacay.
Yes, we've got a few things on the books. We know that in October we'll both be in Georgia. Yay!
Yes.
So we still have to like start planning that because we're going to go to the Nevermore book convention and ball. So that'll be really fun. But yeah, we're starting to plan some things. I'm really excited about that. Get a vacation away. Even if it is a work vacation, it'll be good.
Yeah, it just always helps like planning your vacation because it's like giving you something to look forward to in all this chaos.
Right, because we're such, travelers and we do that for a living, but also like we just love it. It's like you get overwhelmed with life and you're like, let me go plan my next vacation.
Literally, I started doing that this week. I was like, I can't stare at my screen anymore looking at other people's vacations, so I'm going to start planning mine.
It's perfect. It does. It's like you're already on vacation a little bit because your brain kind of goes there. Yeah.
You're like, what would it be like if I was at this resort? What would it be like if I was at that resort, in this pool, in this swim up bar? Yeah.
Right.
It does it. It does the trick. It's very therapeutic.
And for those of you that have been watching on our Instagram, we've been putting out slowly but surely. By the time this podcast comes out, we might have some more little insider sneak peeks, but we've been putting out some hints for season 2 because we are completely in the planning phases for season 2. So we're getting really excited about that.
Yes, I'm so excited for season 2 of the What They Wrote podcast. It's going to be amazing. I'll just say that.
It's going to be amazing. And pretty soon we will be announcing what it is exactly. But we only have a couple months left. So this is end of February. We have March and April of season 1. And then we're going to be taking a break in May. Still active on social media and stuff, but taking a break from episodes and then coming back in June for season 2. I'm really super excited. I feel like this is going to be like the coolest thing we can do, and it'll be the best season yet. So
I think we'll have a lot of fun doing it, and I think listeners will have a lot of fun consuming. I think what we're going to do is really kind of just what people have been enjoying the most out of season 1 of our podcast, while also keeping it, interesting, dynamic, not just kind of like the same episode every time. So I'm definitely excited for you guys to kind of hear what we have planned.
I'm so stoked. And we will be telling you guys soon. So if you have any kind of guesses, send them to us, our DMs and stuff on our Instagram. We want to hear them.
Yes.
And we're stoked. Yep. So with that, what are we doing today, Meg? What's up?
What are we doing today? Well, today is an especially special bonus episode because we are going to get all the juicy deets about Whitney's new novel and my personal favorite book, The Land of Frost, releasing March 18th. So we are going to do a little Q&A with Whitney and get the scoop on her new book. And hopefully by the end of the episode, we will have convinced you to actually read it because you will not regret it. At the time of this recording, The Land of Frost was just released for ARC readers on NetGalley about 2 days ago and is out in the ARC world for people besides your publisher, your editor, your intern, and me to read. How does that feel?
It's exciting. I will tell you the editing process and like the process of getting the book ready to go out for ARCs is not always fun. It's pretty stressful. So to get to this point and then like push it out into the world is really actually exciting. You kind of worry about what people are going to say and what people are going to think, but overall it's exactly. It's like, oh, whatever. If you don't like it, you don't like it, whatever.
Yeah.
But overall it's just so fun to like start thinking about people reading my book and actively reading it. And I know a couple people are, and they've told me they are. So it just gets really exciting because it's out in the world. It's like out in the wild now.
It is. It's like the babies you've created in your head are now going to be in other people's heads. And it's so cool to see this phase of it all finally start to come together. So also at this time, we are a little over a month away from this book being like totally available for the public. You sent me your first draft of chapter 1. I looked this up on December 6th, 2023. Since then, you have written this book. You've gone through rounds and rounds of edits, landed a traditional publishing deal with an amazing small press, and gone through all the stresses and joys that come along with the journey. So from seeing your cover come to life for the first time to simply waiting for pre-orders and edits to come in, this journey has been like over a year in the making, and it's finally about to be unleashed to the world. Has it all hit you yet?
No, yes.
It hasn't hit me yet.
Surreal. Yeah, it feels a little bit surreal because, I just think like first of all, the year's gone by amazingly fast, and it feels like I just had started writing it, even though it also, when I go back to read it, because I'm a reader first and foremost, and I will read my own work. When I go back to read it, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I wrote this like a while ago. I forgot about that.
It's crazy how
Yeah.
long it actually was. Like when I was looking through, I was like, no way, like 2023. Like I feel like we just like got this book on paper, like just like a couple months ago. It actually went by so fast.
It went by so fast. So, yes and no. It's a surreal moment. So, tomorrow, as of recording, tomorrow will be 30 days because February only has 28 days. So, we
Right.
are at 30 days tomorrow until release.
Amazing.
And just thinking about that number is like crazy because I remember when we were at 4 months to release, and that was like a blink of an eye ago. And I was like, can you believe it? We have 4 months. And you're like, this is going to fly by.
Fly by.
And, nothing was really set up. I think we had ebook pre-orders. I had seen the cover, but it wasn't like a big deal yet. And now we're here, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. It's in like so many indie bookstores. It's up for pre-order there. It's on the big guys, and it's insane. Every time I look for where it's at or how pre-orders are doing and stuff, I like lose my mind. I'm so excited. So it really hasn't sunk in. It's kind of like a cool moment, but yeah.
It's definitely getting to like real reality of it being on bookshelves and being in people's hands. So, yeah, you're right. Now here we are. I don't know about you, but this whole part of the experience is probably one of my favorite parts, second to actually reading the book, because we actually get to start talking about the book really and telling people all about the story that came to you one night. So, in your words and without spoilers, what is The Land of Frost about?
This is an adult book, so let's just start with The Land of Frost is a story about Maeve Moran, the princess of a magic kingdom, Draoconi. The book starts on her wedding day as she's going to marry a merchant, and she's about 20 years old, so she's starting out her life as a merchant's wife, and a coup breaks out in her kingdom. In the first chapter, which is online so everybody can read it, in the first chapter, she loses her family, the king, the queen, her brother, the heir, her fiance, and her magic, and is left for dead as these usurpers take over the kingdom. So the story follows Maeve, who is saved at the brink of death, and her journey to seek revenge against these people who took everything from her. And it leads her to the Land of Frost.
Ooh, okay. So you did say that this is an adult book. Is there a specific age group that this caters to, or just general adult?
I would say it's new adult, so 18 to 30 would be a good ideal age, but anybody over, I think it would probably really call to anybody in that adult range. You could be older. I'm older than 30 and I enjoy it.
Very true. We both are.
Yeah. And I think that it would be anybody who enjoys fantasy, adult fantasy, romantasy, adventure. But yeah, adults, no kids. Don't kids.
No minors. Yeah. Okay, so can you give us kind of like a mini tour of the world you've created? Like what types of things we can expect to encounter? Because fantasy, there's all different layers of fantasy. So what types of things are we going to find in this world?
Yes. So she lives in a kingdom called Draoconi. It's on the continent of Hershmore, and it is made up of 5 distinct territories and a no man's land that sits in the center. Each territory is unique in its terrain, in its climate, and also in architecture, in culture, all very unique. We have the main capital, which is called Galorglion, and it is very much like the farming area. It's really pretty like mild. They've got flower fields. It's nice and green. And then you have up in the north, Romadog, which is an endless winter, almost completely endless night, very cold. And in the south, we have Tyne Malacht, which is an endless daylight. It's a desert, and it is so stinking hot. And then we have the 2 others, the coastal Tonforska and Gallameister, which is really forested. So everything's really unique and different in this kingdom. There's magic, of course. It's a magic kingdom. Each person has what would be called common magic. Humans have common magic. They also have individual magic, so something unique to them. There are creatures. The surrounding kingdoms that's on the continent of Hershmore are Dun and Irrendare. Irrendare has humans who also have magic, and Dun has fairies of the fae distinction, I would say. So not little guys with
Not
wings,
little
but
pixies.
fae. Yeah, exactly. Fae like you would find in Sarah J. Maas's books, big human-like fairies. So we have fairies, we have dragons, not on page 1, not in book 1 on page, but there are dragons and they're mentioned in book 1. And there's also what's called a shadow lurker, which is like a vampire in this territory. Yeah, very scary. Murrow, which are like mermaids. We've got everything in it. So we've got lots of magical creatures. We've got magic. We've got different sort of territories, very unique, and just a really cool, unique place.
So you went very in depth in creating this world, as a fantasy writer must. So what was the world building process like for you? Like, did you use any tools? Was this kind of your first time really like building a world this in depth?
It was. Yeah, most of my other stories took place like in the real world setting where, some other fantastic things can happen in those worlds, but it was a real world setting. It was kind of like urban fantasy if it was fantasy, or it was just like contemporary romance, so it was set in, this world, but this was its own thing. So it did actually take a lot of like time to sit down and say, okay, what is this going to look like? What is important to me as I build this world? What do I want to highlight? So what I really wanted to do was make a unique kingdom that valued things that I value, that also had a lot of real life struggles, real life conflict. And I wanted to make it something that the reader could fall into because it was so different from the world that they live in. So it does have lots of elements of like real world stuff, real world political drama. So you have kind of that basis of real world, but it is very unique. Cultures are very unique in it. Things are very individual to these people for a certain reason. I really value a lot of distinct cultures and things that it can bring to the story. So I wanted that to be important. And so the world building was a big thing for me because I wanted that world to feel rich and full. And like it was a complete world when you walk into it, not just like a two-dimensional kind of like place that has been built for like the setting of a book, but that you could actually feel like you probably could walk down the street and you could envision it. You could imagine where you were, even though it was so different from this world.
And you do a very good job of it as somebody who's read the book multiple times. Like, you really do get an idea of what this world is. And I remember when you were kind of doing this writing process and world building, like you were going into depths that I never realized a writer needs to go to. Like, you were talking about religious figures, you were talking about favorite foods and, favorite types of music for all of your characters. And I feel like, didn't you use some sort of like software or something that kind of, or like some sort of workbook or something that helped you kind of guide you along the way?
I did. So there are some really great tools for authors to use as like character workbooks and stuff that help you, that ask you like questions that would fill in your world. Like, what sort of foods do they offer? Do they drink cow's milk? Do they, is it something different? What is the currency like? What are the kingdom's perceptions of who runs this kingdom, rather than, you might see on page there's a king or something, but what do the people think about that? What about religion? Is it, a religious country? Is it an atheist country? Why? How do they feel about that? What is the conflict between that? And then it's really full because it's asking you these questions to go deeper into world building. So there are workbooks that I kind of went through, but then like I used this software called Notion, which I think is all authors should use it. So if you're an author thinking about like building a world, you should use it. And I built my world out on it completely. From the start, I was like, do I want this to be a series? Do I want it to be a standalone? What do I want it to be? And once I knew what I wanted it to be, I needed to build it out so that I knew everything for that scope. Because writing one book would be different than writing 2, 3, 4 of how much I needed to know about this world. So I started building out like what I needed for the continent, what I needed for the country, what I needed for each person, what do I need to know? And I get really in depth. Like I do, what is their personality type? I give them like that Myers-Briggs test for each character. So I know what they like. I have like hobbies and heights and things, the standard stuff, but like also like dig real deep because I want these people, I want to know them better than I know myself or as well as I know myself, so that when somebody comes up and asks me like about this character, I can answer a question, but also I want them to feel like there's something to learn about them, that it's like full. Like when you meet somebody in real life, you kind of like know that they have like a full life because they're a real living person. They're not like a piece of paper with words on it. It's a real person. And I want that same feeling to come through in my writing, whether it's the world or whether it's the person. So I actually do. I take a lot of time and I build out like each little detail of what is happening in the world. I know what the currency looks like. I know what foods are sold at which market in this place. I know what sort of cups they would use, or the music, what it sounds like, what the architecture's like, and what the sand would feel like underneath your hands, if it's coarse, if it's fine. I go through all of this before I even start writing so that I can know this place and I can kind of like fall into it and have my feet like grounded there when I start, if that makes sense.
That's so cool. Oh yeah, it makes total sense. And honestly, it sounds like kind of a fun process. Like
it's so fun.
Like it's kind of like you're playing Mega Sims, right? Like you and I have played Sims like our whole lives. So it's kind of like making like a Mega Sims in like a fantasy world. That sounds so fun.
No, that's actually exactly like what it would be like, because you know how you build characters. You and I, we love it, but you build like the Sims world, but you also build the characters and you spend like 10 hours making that person completely right. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah,
that's so fun.
And you're God, so you can put them in the pool and take out the ladder and let them swim around until they drown. Yeah, you can do that, but you
can put it on page.
And you put it on page, and you can just like tear somebody's heart out because you've just put that person in that pool. Yeah, no, it's fun. I love it.
So can you tell us a little bit about your main characters? What are like top 3 main characters we might encounter?
Yes, I can tell you top 3. I would say there are 5 main characters in this book. I would say top 3. Maeve Moran absolutely is number 1. She's our girl. She's the one that we're following. This is a first-person narrative, so she is our narrator in this story. And she is the princess, like I said, of Draoconi. She is feisty. She is young and a little naive, and she lives for revenge. I think that's the best way to put her. She's, I wrote her very specifically to be like somebody that you could identify with, maybe not like what she's going through necessarily, or maybe not like sometimes if she's whiny, it's fine. Like that's life. I'm a little bit whiny sometimes too, but yeah, I wrote her to be kind of like normal. Like, when you read a fantasy and there's like a female heroine and she's like all of a sudden really super good at everything she has to do. Maeve is not that way. She will never be that way because she's normal. So no matter how much like training she goes through or how much she has to deal with, she's always going to be a little bit flawed, or like she needs a little bit of help because she's a normal person. So she's a princess first and foremost, and she kind of has that personality of a princess, and she is capable, but she is also a normal, not exaggerated capable like you would see in most books. Owen Kale is our main male character. Love him. He is a 6'3" fire daddy. If you've read any Shadow Daddies and love them, Rhysand, Xaden, all of them. Let me introduce you to a fire daddy. He wields dragon fire. He's military. And he is the most dangerous prisoner in Bascagar prison. And that's all I'm going to say here.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that her journey goes to the Land of Frost, but now we've also heard Bascagar prison. Are these one and the same? Do they differ?
Bascagar prison sits on the top of the Romadog mountain range in Romadog, which I would consider is the Land of Frost. It is an endless winter, almost nearly endless night. Very, very, very cold. If you don't like the cold, Megan doesn't like the cold. She would not survive there. I wouldn't survive there either. It's too cold. But
absolutely not.
That would be the Land of Frost, and Boskagar sits in the Land of Frost. Boskagar prison is the prison where the absolute worst of the worst are sent in Draoconi. It is for the worst felons you could find in the kingdom.
It's Azkaban.
And it's Azkaban, basically. It is, absolutely. And so this is where Maeve might end up as she travels to the Land of Frost, and where she might meet some characters, including perhaps the most dangerous prisoner at Boskagar prison.
That also might wield dragonfire.
That might wield dragonfire. Intrigue. And also might be just steamy hot. Like,
might just be a sex god.
You know, my intern said, a fire daddy is so cool because he can literally burn the world down for you. Yeah. And I was like, that's actually so true. He can burn the world down for you. He
totally could.
He could. And would he? Maybe.
Interesting. We'll okay, so we still need a third character.
A third. Gogalesh Devenalt. He is the fairy warden of Boskagar prison. So he is over 800 years old. He is big, tall, angry all the time.
Love it. Broody.
Broody. And he has to be probably one of my favorite characters for the amount of sass he has, the amount of fun I have writing him, and just like the one-liners. Everybody that has read this book, my publisher has read it, my intern has read it, Megan has read it. They've all said, like, we started out not liking him, but oh my gosh, is he like my favorite character now? And honestly, it's true, because he's actually like the most fun person. I think my intern said, and I think this is true, if you read Fourth Wing, the character that is most like Gogalesh, Tarn.
Ooh, yes, 100%.
That personality.
Yes. Just kind of like that, like, maybe like kind of like papa figure, like father figure kind of a thing, but also just like really grumpy, but also hysterical, and deep down probably has a heart and has deep love and affection for something, someone, maybe more than one person. I don't know. But yeah, I totally agree. Love me some Gogalesh, 100%. Okay, so we got our top 3 characters that we may discuss further on down this interview. Sure. What are some of the themes or challenges that Maeve experiences in this book?
Besides losing her family, which was the big one, she's really thrown into a world she doesn't know. Maeve, like I said, she's a princess, but she is very much the princess that never leaves and doesn't know anything. So the challenges and the themes are like trying to kind of find your way in the world. It's almost like a coming of age story, even though she's 20 years old. She should be an adult, and she was about to get married. But it's very much that, like, finding yourself, who you are, your purpose in life, your strength, and also like who you can trust, like that found family. Who can I really trust with my life in this time where things are kind of like turned upside down and very dangerous for her? She survived a coup in chapter 1, so there's a lot of danger there, and the stakes are really high. So dealing with that loss and grieving and kind of understanding what that means almost for the first time, I would say, and then finding yourself in that and like pulling yourself out of that so that you can then kind of move forward and like get about your purpose. And so I think that's really what Maeve is facing in this story is, what is my purpose? Where do I belong? How do I get there? What do I need to do to get there? There's always that kind of like moral kind of like compass moving you. How much am I willing to give to get to where I need to be? And that's a big theme for her.
Yeah, and like you said, a very real world thing that people have to deal with, especially as they grow up. And I think it's also very interesting because Maeve is going through this like essentially defenseless, because as you mentioned earlier, she loses her magic. So whatever she's had, however long she's had this magic, it's gone, and now she doesn't even know who she is anymore without this magic, I would imagine.
Right. Imagine if you were going into the world completely unprotected, but also unfamiliar with who you are and who you see in the mirror. completely your whole entire identity is taken from you. And it's like physically taken because her magic is gone. But like imagine just like looking in the mirror and going, how do I start again without knowing what to do? Looking at yourself and going, I'm completely weak. I'm completely without a center or without anything that I know I can do. And how do I start from there? And I mean, I feel like that's a theme that transcends fantasy or transcends like this story where something like really crazy happens, like you lose your magic. But how many of us have had to start over again and have no idea how to start over again and don't even recognize that person in the mirror and say, okay, but I have to pick myself up from this terrible situation where we feel vulnerable and we feel weak. How do I pick myself up and start again and do it better and do it right? It's a big deal. It's hard.
That's very, very hard. So it's very interesting to read how she goes through all of that and kind of the struggles that you get to witness because it's written in first person. So you actually get to be in her head as she's going through all of this, which is very relatable and just very eye-opening if it's something you may not have gone through recently but you remember kind of going through something like that. You're like, oh shit, like this is some real stuff. Are there any darker, I mean, this is an adult book, so are there any darker, heavier themes that the reader should anticipate?
Yes, you should. We live in a society now where we put trigger warnings in books for a reason because people want to know what they're walking into, and I think that's fair. So yeah, as we said, this book starts with a coup on page 1. So if you're not into murder, if you can't handle it, that's probably where you want to stop and say, maybe this book isn't for me. But there's murder, obviously. There's abuse off page. It's talked about. There's attempted murder in this book. So not only murder, but attempted murder. Like we said, Maeve survives this coup. So, but she does go through it. It's not left off page. So if that sort of violence really is rough for you, that might be a little bit difficult. Profanity, of course, I don't shy away from that. We use profanity in this show. We're going to use it in the book. Drugs, hallucinations, infertility is talked about in this book, which was an interesting one. I haven't really seen that too much on page, so to write it in, that is on page. So if you're a little bit sensitive to that, and of course there's sex in the book because what else do you want from me, guys?
Right, like
I'm giving you everything I've got.
You write a character like the character in your book, and you're gonna want a spicy scene,
right? So, I'm giving you guys it all. Like I'm trying to show up for you, and so sex is on page as well.
All right, we love on page sex. Open door. We're walking right in.
Yep.
Okay, so couple fun questions to wrap up this kind of character talk. Yep. If Maeve were a Taylor Swift song in this book, which one would she be?
If Maeve was a Taylor Swift song in this book, you're really getting me with this one because there's so many that she could be. I like Call It What You Want.
Ooh, okay.
I'm gonna go with that one. I feel like that's Maeve vibes for that one. What was yours that you had in mind?
Mine, I just got, it was actually based off of something you said earlier today. So it's been in my head the rest of this conversation. Oh my gosh. I'm singing vigilante shit because you were talking about Maeve being ready for revenge. So I'm like, I don't dress for villains. I don't dress for friends, but I'm dressing for revenge because
that's a great
as you mentioned, she's out for revenge. So that's just the one that's just been playing in my head in the background.
No, I love it. I love it. Okay. That's a great one.
Okay. So we know you love Taylor Swift, but there is an artist I know for a fact you love more. So you might need to get your song list out. If Owen were a Paolo Nutini song, which would he be?
Oh, this is easy. Actually, I got this.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. He would be Better Man by Paolo Nutini.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a cute one. Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay. So this question is inspired by that girl at the Onyx Storm release party. So if Galgalesh were a kitchen utensil, what would he be?
Ooh.
Open your kitchen drawer.
Open my kitchen drawer. You know what? He'd be a steak knife. He'd cut away from the bone. He's not delicate at all. He says it like he sees it. He means what he says, and he's not always nice. He's a steak knife.
But you need him.
Edges. But you need him.
But you need him. That's a great answer. I came to you quick. Good job.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the inspiration behind this story. So, what inspired the idea for this story? When did it come to you?
Yeah, just over 4 years ago now, I had a dream about, and
Okay.
it was a very short dream, but I had a dream about a coup breaking out at a princess's wedding and her being the sole survivor of this coup. And kind of like, it wasn't a long dream, so it wasn't like full fledged, but it was like her being left to die and knowing that she needed to seek revenge. And that whole, like, that was just what permeated through that dream, was like that need for revenge. And I woke up and I was like, wow, that sounds like a great story. I wish I had more of it, right? Try to go back to sleep, try to close your eyes and get back into it. But then I kind of sat on it for 3 years or whatever, and didn't, just kept thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And like, I had that dream that one day where that princess, her family was killed at her wedding and she was left to die. Like, that's still a really interesting story. Maybe I should write that. And I hadn't been writing that. I've been writing something completely different.
Right.
And then I will contribute this to you.
Me?
Yeah, we went on our trip to Europe and we read ACOTAR. Everybody knows this story. I'm not going into it. We read ACOTAR, then we read Fourth Wing. And I said to Megan, I looked at her and I said, I had this dream once about this story that I think I should write. And it's, it's more like a fantasy story. And she's like, why don't you just do it? And I was like, maybe I should. And then I went
Just write
home
it.
and I was like, Megan, I wrote chapter 1 of this new story. Do you want to read it? And she's like, sure.
Duh.
And I had just gone home and I was like it just came to me, like everything started like falling onto page, and I was like, wait, I have to have like a kingdom, like I need more details, let me figure this out. So I think it took me 2 days to kind of like start the preliminary kind of like thought process on it before like I really started diving deep and planning what the whole story would look like. But I wrote that chapter 1 because I had already known what it was going to be within like 2 days, and started fledging out everything. And it just came from like this little dream that was like probably a snippet of something that I can't remember the whole thing. It probably had like a beginning, a middle, and an end, but I just remember the beginning. And yeah, that's where it came from. It was interesting.
You have some really useful dreams. Mine definitely don't give me my next business venture. So I am like waiting for my subconscious to kick in and give me something I can actually use.
Most of it's pretty bad that comes through, but some of them are good.
At least you got one good one.
Yeah.
So as you continue to build the story, were there any like real life experiences or observations that influenced or contributed to it?
Probably not a lot of my own. I think I do write from a perspective of my own. So I think that sometimes that comes out. But I am a lover of history, and I am a lover of like folklore, fairy tale, that sort of thing. Like, live on that. That's why I love fantasy, right? So when I wrote this story, I wanted to draw from something important, because I was going to talk about political things. I was going to talk about, social sort of things in a new kind of light. So I pulled a lot of inspiration from like Irish history and folklore when I was writing, mostly because it's very interesting. It's very rich history, and it's history that we don't know a lot about, like as like a society. There's other histories that we pull a lot from, like Greek history and mythology we pull from, and that sort of thing. That's a really common thing to write about or to be inspired by. But like Irish history and folklore, I haven't seen tons of it. It's not like the Vikings, it's not like How to Train Your Dragon or something is pulled from Viking folklore. It's a little bit its own kind of beast. So I started researching Irish history and folklore, and that was really a big kind of basis to what I wrote this on. This was when I was like full-fledged hashing out what the story was going to be, and I was so intrigued by just the amazing things that happen, like in like true things that happen, but like also things that like drove like their storytelling, and was able to incorporate that.
And piggybacking off of that, when it came
Yes.
to like the writing of it, were there any books or authors you pulled inspiration from when it came to like writing style, voice, anything like that?
The cool thing about authors is we get to make our own voices and kind of put them on page. But I am really inspired by like Rebecca Yarros. I love the way she tells the story in first person with an unreliable narrator, which I'm obsessed with. You probably won't find me writing third person a lot because I like that perspective, and I like it when authors write in like that first person. You're not getting the whole story, but you're getting what your main character's understanding, and I like that. So I kind of pulled inspiration from that, from her style of writing. I really respect in like romance sort of perspective. I pull from a lot of like contemporary romance writers as well as I was writing this, just because there's a universal perspective that you can have. I love the female gaze, so writing romance from that eye of like the female character is really cool and really liberating, and we know like a lot more authors are trying to do that now, and closed door and open door. So you know, like I always liked Joanne Harris growing up. She wrote Chocolat, if you've read it. She wrote the food series, and I really liked that because of the way she wrote that romance, where she was kind of, you know, it was still that female gaze, but it was like she put men in there, and it was like believable men as she was still writing that female gaze, and I liked that. So I was really inspired by that. Like, we can still write men and men's perspectives, even though women are getting the forefront and things like that. So I like that. I pulled from contemporary romance for that. I grew up with fantasy, so I even like those elements of like young adult fantasy that I grew up on. The nonstop adventure of like Percy Jackson. It starts from like page 1. I really like that. I don't like a lot of like information dumps in books that I read, especially with fantasy, and I really appreciate it when an author does not like info dump, but like builds it into like the story itself. So things like J.K. Rowling, the way that she tells a story, where she like puts you in. You know how Sorcerer's Stone starts and it's like Mr. and Mrs. Dursley, or you know,
perfectly
and
normal. Thank you very much.
Exactly. I wasn't going to quote it all, but yes. And it just like drops you right into their story, and you get kind of like the world around you. Just as you like go into like his morning as he goes to work and like does his job and then comes back, and he's kind of seeing things happening around him that builds that story. That's what I really like, because I want you to be immersed in the world as it's building, and you're gaining information as that character that you're with is gaining that information. And so I think that's really important when I write. So I kind of pull from that sort of thing. And then I also I'll say I read a book called Save the Cat, but it's for novel writing. Save the Cat is a screenwriting book, but now they've written them for different things. And there's one for novel writing, and it actually like talks about like the formula for how you would structure a story going through so it flows the whole time, and that's really helpful too. So I read this book and I was like, oh, that makes sense. And then I went back to all the books that I really love, and I went, oh yeah, they kind of follow the same kind of pattern. So I pulled a lot from that as well, which I think was really nice because it helped the story to be full.
It definitely did. You do a fantastic job of that, of obviously pulling the reader in at the very beginning. And I know that because I would have had a hard time reading it, because I have a hard time reading anything that doesn't dump me right into the story. So I personally, as your number one fan, appreciated that. But no, you're totally right. We always talk about this on this podcast. Acknowledging who has inspired you, I think, is also great, because I'm sure those authors would also be honored to hear that another author, successful author, was inspired by their work. Like, wouldn't that be such a cool compliment? So I don't think we should be afraid to say who inspired us, what inspired us, because we all get inspired by somebody.
Absolutely.
So what was writing from Maeve's POV like specifically? Did she ever surprise you, frustrate you? What was kind of being in her head like?
Yeah, you know, I always kind of, when I'm writing characters, I bounce back and forth between like I'm writing and the characters writing. And I kind of let them go when I know where the story's going. I bring them back on, like Mama's got to bring you back to the story, because sometimes they go a little bit rogue. But it was interesting writing Maeve, because I had an idea of what I wanted her to do. I had her goal. I had her arc kind of like from the start. I had everybody's arcs from the start. I really planned that out. But then she surprised me a lot, because sometimes she would do things that I did not expect, but it worked for the story. She's a little bit trying to think of a nice word to describe it. She's
chaotic.
A little bit chaotic. Chaotic's a great word. Sometimes I say, "Oh, you dumb bitch," but
Yeah.
but I say it very lovingly. But no, she's a little bit chaotic, and I'm more of like a type A sort of person, and she's actually not that way. She's controlling in that she wants her way, but she's not very type A. She's like, okay, I'm gonna gun through this and do it, however way I want. It's not planned, and everybody's like, okay, chill out. But she's like, just gonna go for it. So that always surprised me, because when I fall into a character, it's no longer me writing. And so my voice doesn't come out in it. And people think this is crazy. It's like you're schizophrenic or something, but it's actually true.
I do think you're crazy, but it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because every time I text Megan, I'm like, hey, do you think that the character was blah blah blah? She's like, this is your story. Like,
I was like, didn't you write this?
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know, they just went with it. Like, my characters just wrote the story. I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you having you need an exorcism? Like, what's going on?
And I probably do, it's probably true. But yeah, I just let them go sometimes where they want to go, or where it feels natural. There were times where I had like certain love interests for other people that maybe didn't pan out, because that character was like, oh, I'm not going there with you. Don't do that. And I've had, certain situations where it was like, well, I'm going to do this to you. And the character goes, no, let's go this way instead. So that always does surprise me. But I did love writing her voice, because she is unique in that she is very normal. She doesn't always have the right answer. She's not perfect. She's very far from being perfect. And to watch that kind of pan out on page is really fun, because it's fun to get her in trouble sometimes. And it sometimes being of her own making, and you're like, haha, look what you did to yourself now. So that's always fun. But yeah, no, she was great to write. I absolutely love her. She's probably one of my favorite characters to ever write.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
She's definitely very interesting, because reading her, you can hear the poise in her, like the princess side of her, where she is or believes herself to be well learned. She's like, recites her, stories in her history the way she was taught them. She uses, a refined language, like a refined vocabulary, I feel like. But then you also have that naivete in her, where she's sometimes just seems a little dumb, which is such a weird contrast, because you're used to, at the beginning, you're like, okay, she's this princess, she's prim, she's proper, she knows her stuff. But then you're like, oh, baby girl, maybe you're not that, well learned and distinguished and poised. So it is such a cool combination of the two, that you kind of get to see both sides of her, where she thinks she's this hot shit princess, but also kind of maybe starting to realize that maybe she doesn't know everything, or maybe the things she were taught weren't correct. And now, like you said, she's learning everything for the first time again.
That's why I really call it like a coming of age story for her, even though she's 20 years old and she should be like of age. She was trying to get married, so she should be of age. But it is really a coming of age story, because it seems like she should know a lot. But she's just a baby.
She's just a baby.
She's just coming into this world, and she's learning it. And that's the cool thing about writing her and then building the world as we go, and not just like info dumping, like she knows everything about the world. I wanted her to specifically not know everything about the world, because I want you to learn the world as she's learning the world. So you're going to know as much as she knows about wherever you're at all times. And so as she grows in knowledge, you're growing in knowledge. So you almost feel like you're her, but you are, because you're still learning, because, you might be educated and smart and, an adult, but then, you get into this world and you're brand new and you're walking into it, not knowing anything. And so you're with Maeve, and that's really cool. As much as I knew about the kingdom and the world and the people, when I started writing it, after I planned it all out, she knew nothing. and to kind of like explore what that meant, to kind of like imagine if you lived someplace your whole entire life, and then you walked outside one day and you realized, like, I don't know anything. I live, say you grew up in the United States, in California, and you walk outside and you're like, I know nothing about this place. I don't even know my street. You know, what would that be like? And you start to feel really dumb sometimes, I think, just because,
Yeah.
you just don't know a lot. And
Yeah.
I like that perspective of her being somebody that likes to know everything and have like information and stuff. Like that's such a different sort of like almost a confusing, scary sort of, situation to be in. And like how do you navigate that? Yeah.
Someone who likes control and suddenly doesn't have any.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some common romance, fantasy, romantasy book tropes that we could expect in this book?
There's a few. Forced proximity in this book. Enemies to lovers.
Yes.
Yes, my favorite. My favorite. Enemies to lovers, maybe a one bed trope. Touch her and die. My intern says it's like more like look at her and die.
Yeah.
Burn the world for her, sort of. Yeah. It's like almost like grumpy too. It's not even grumpy sunshine. It's like grumpy, which I really like. And then, there's like micro tropes like pinning her down in the arena. I like that. There's like a lot of fighting tropes too, so it's not even really enemies. It's like beat the shit out of you to lovers. Which I kind of enjoy.
I think there's also a small scaling the castle walls naked trope.
Oh yes. Megan wants me to talk about this because this is her favorite.
This is my favorite.
Yeah. Scaling the fortress walls naked in the snow. That is there. I don't know how much of a trope that is, but we're gonna make it one. It's
now a trope. And I wonder what on earth would have caused that scene, but let me tell you, it's my favorite. And I think it should be the book cover when you decide to redesign the book cover.
Let's be real. Megan has tried to get my publisher to make this the cover.
I really, really have. I just found like a special edition, like a raunchy special edition of just like Maeve's bare ass scaling the castle wall in the snow, in the dark. I just think that's brilliant. That's truly brilliant and my favorite scene in the book.
Let's make it happen. I started... as you should. I brought it up for the first time on TikTok recently. Nice. And people were like, I'm buying this book. I'm running to buy this book. I'm like, no, it's really?
Yeah, it's iconic. Like, how often do you get that? And what on earth would lead to this? Why is this woman doing this? And how dumb is she to do it? Spoiler alert, she dumb.
She dumb.
Let
me tell you, I sat there and I laughed when I wrote it. I was just like,
Yeah.
Sometimes us writers have fun. We do something to have fun. And this was fun. So if you're sitting there laughing and you're like, what is this shit when you're reading this book? I meant for you to laugh. It wasn't just like me trying to be serious and you guys are like, this is very weird and cringy. I meant it to be weird and cringy. So yeah.
We love a little weird and cringy. As long as it's not,
you can say
talking about nectar and smells of lower body parts of women and curdled cheese in your mouth. There's some things that some cringy things that should just be left off page. So none of that in your book. That's a relief. What would you say was the biggest challenge or biggest surprise you faced during the writing process?
Well, I wrote this all writing every single day without fail, which was challenging because I've never done that. I've like actually never written a book all the way through without stopping and getting like writer's block. So that was interesting. It was surprising. It might not have been challenging. It was surprising. It was exhausting. But also, I think just building a world that didn't feel two-dimensional was a challenge that I challenged myself with that also became like something I had to look out for so much that it was almost like the main thing running through my mind all the time was like, let's make sure that this world doesn't have like so many holes because I'm trying to make it, big, but I want it to be full and just something that, like we talked about it, just building out that world. That was a challenge because first of all, I've never built my own world. So don't come at me if you don't like my world. I like it. So
I do too.
But it is challenging and maybe finding out like what works and what doesn't, defining those roles in the world was really challenging to me, but it also paid off. Once I knew it, once I got my feet on the ground there, it made so much sense that like I couldn't have done the story without it. Like I wouldn't have written it any other way, even though it was kind of like the bigger thing, something that like kind of like pulled me out of like my shell as a writer and something new, which I think that will continue on because I liked it so much.
Good. Do you feel like the constant pressure to keep writing from your best friend at the time caused any detriment to your mental health, or are you still like chilling?
No, I'm chilling. No, I loved it. She's just checking before. She's like, your best friend at the time.
I know, right? Are we still good? No, and
good.
I think it had to have been after you sent me the first chapter, if not the first 4 chapters. I pretty much told you, you will get no rest. You've now written this book that I must read the rest of, and there's no rest for the wicked, so you shan't sleep until this book is done. So yeah, you did write a lot. You wrote every single day, which was fantastic, and you kept me fed, and I appreciate it, and I'm excited for everybody else to get fed.
You know, what's really funny is that we would have like our weekly meetups with like our friend group or whatever, and we'd just be sitting there like chatting about like my book, which was not even fully like finished, and everybody else is like, okay guys, like you gonna talk to us?
Like, you gonna talk about anything else?
No, we're not
interested.
We're just in this story now. And like Megan's good because she's an honest person, and you know, she'll tell you like to a fault, which is, you know, I am too, so I love it. But you know, she's an honest person. She would tell me like, that felt a little bit flat, go rewrite it, and then show me what you have.
I think there were a couple times too where, not that it felt flat, but I was like, I need more here. Like, this is good, but you need to write more in this. Like, this is a scene that will do very, very well.
The first draft was 100,000 words, and it ended up being 115,000 words after final edits and everything. So I did take your word when you said that, and it did really help me, which I think every author should have a little buddy to like help them
in their back pocket.
Reading. Absolutely. And just like read through their stuff. If any author wants me to read through their stuff chapter by chapter, sure, I will. But yeah, it's really helpful, and no, I loved it. So you're fine. We're still friends.
Glad we're chilling. So this was the first time I believe you wrote real open door spice. What was that like? And of course, you know, we're always going to ask, is your family going to read it?
Loaded question. You know, I did write some open door spice in Broken Anchors, and then I took it out because I was a chicken. Just because I didn't feel like it needed it. I was like, I can fade to black. It's fine. It works in this story. When I started writing this story, I was like, no. This story is gonna need it on page. Yeah. It's for the plot. It's not necessarily. I don't like it when it's in a book unnecessarily. Wait, wrong. She's a liar. I do like it in a book when it's unnecessary. If I'm reading like smut.
Yes, like intended
almost
to be
erotica.
Smut. Yeah.
And I do read that, but no, for my story, I was like, it's gonna need to be in there because we're gonna build a lot of tension. We're gonna build a relationship between 2 characters, and I want it on page because I feel like this is one where we have a main character who is like learning things for the first time. So all her experiences I want to be on page. So we're experiencing it with her. But also I feel like it's going to just like drag the reader in, and like they're going to fall into this world and like really understand like the stakes of it if it's on page. So that was really cool. I enjoyed writing it. I went back and I was like rereading, like, is this cringy? You know, what was in here? Like, I'm doing the test, but I get the ick if I like read this. So hopefully nobody gets the ick when they read it. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Will my family read it? I don't know. To be honest, they don't read my books.
Yeah, so, I was gonna say, I don't think so. Especially once you tell them that there's sex in it, I feel like they're gonna be like, yeah, clutching their pearls.
Exactly. But that's fine. You know, it's not written for them. It's written for the audience that will read it.
It's written for me. Everybody get over it.
It is written for Megan. This book is written for Megan. She's in the
you're welcome.
Just so you know.
I did see that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so are there any specific scenes or moments you are particularly excited for readers to experience?
Oh, yes. Yes. I think the moment the main male character walks on page, I want you to experience that the way I experienced that, because it made me all tingly inside. I'm just saying. I think that, so this book ends on a cliffhanger, Don't hate
Gasp.
me. It is a series, and I will say, you heard it here first, you won't have to wait a long time for book 2.
Ooh, you heard it here first, friends. How many books are there in the series?
4. There's 4.
Oh, okay.
And it's already planned series, and I will say I can tell you this here. My publisher and I do have a timeline for these books, so you're not waiting 10 years for the books to finish up.
Oh, no George R.R. Martin here.
No. But also, I do think, since it ends on a cliffhanger, I cannot wait for you guys to be sliding into my DMs saying, "You fucking bitch."
And you will.
When you get to that cliffhanger.
And you will. Didn't your publisher say she threw her Kindle?
She threw her Kindle when she read it. She slid into my DMs. Before I even got my offer, she slid into my DMs. Yeah, this is a crazy story, I'll tell you. So I was sending out queries, and I was sending to agents and publishers when I was writing, in the process of this book. And I was like, I'm going to get it out there. I'd just written it, kind of gone through it, made sure it was like polished, sent it out. Didn't expect anything. Azala Press, which is the press I am signed with, they asked me they had like the first 5 chapters or something. And I think it was the first chapter. And they asked me for the whole manuscript. So I sent it to them, didn't think anything of it. We didn't hear from them for a couple of months. I was like, yeah, they probably didn't like it. They're not going to get back to me. One night I was watching Queen Charlotte. Shout out to Shonda Rhimes.
We love Shonda here.
Yes. I was sitting on the couch in the middle of the night watching Queen Charlotte, and my phone lit up. And I went, oh, I've got a message request on Instagram. And it was from this person, and I didn't know who she was, Molly Ahern. And I was like, what is this? And she's like, oh my God, when I read the end of The Land of Frost, I threw my Kindle. My jaw was on the floor. And I'm like, who read The End of Land of Frost?
Who the hell has Land of Frost?
Yes. I was like freaking out, and I was like almost shaking. And at first, like enraged. I'm like, who has this book? How did they get it? Is my computer hacked? What happened? And then so I started Googling her, and I was like, who is this person? Found out she is the owner of the publishing house that I sent my full manuscript to. So sorry, I kind of lost my head for no reason. And I messaged her back, and she was like, you're going to hear from me next week, but I just need you to know that I loved it so much and I couldn't believe it. So it was an amazing experience. It was
so exciting.
Floored. And then I was shaking because I was like, oh my gosh, somebody liked my story.
Somebody liked it.
It was really exciting. But yeah, she slid into my DMs, and I hope you guys do too. You can. And you come tell me how much you hate me for it. But
unless you have something seriously negative to say, in which case, keep your negative comments to yourself. We don't need to be bringing people down.
Right.
So we spread positivity here, not negativity. There's already enough negativity in the world with like Amazon reviews, Goodreads reviews, people just being jerks. Like if you didn't like a book, that's fine. You can leave a constructive, critical, but just don't be a jerk. Like, come on. This is people's art. This is people's work.
And I'm not going to read your Goodreads review, honestly. So if you leave me one that's like a 1-star or something, that's fine. Like that's your prerogative, but I'm not going to read it. So just know that, you've said it to the other readers and not for me. And that's fine.
And we don't care.
We don't care. So yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we talked a little bit how this is a series. It's a 4-book series. Have you thought any more about wanting to expand even further? Like, do you see yourself ever doing like a sequel to the series or a prequel or expanding the series at all? Or is it too early to say?
No, it's not. I'll tell you. Yeah, I've got plenty of ideas. I've built something that I think has become so rich in just detail and in, scope, that there's so much more story that can be told beyond this series. And the series is called the Steel Citadel series. I don't think we've said that yet.
We haven't, actually.
It's called the Steel Citadel series. And I think that just the scope of the world is so big and it's got so much potential. I'm excited to see what stories are kind of left to uncover there. So I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I know that there are more stories to tell in this universe, and I would be excited to tell them if my characters decide to talk to me, and if maybe new characters came out and started talking to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there any like Easter eggs or hints, nods to future books that would be found in Land of Frost that readers could look out for? Any hints to where to pay attention, maybe?
When I tell you that I've clowned about Rep TV for months with Megan, that should tell you how much I love Easter eggs and how much I'm trying to figure this out. Yes, I love, love, love Easter eggs in books. I like to have those crumbs of something to come that readers can look out for, because I think that's just fun. I think putting that story together, like it's like a mystery that you're kind of solving as you go to lead you to like the ultimate conclusion of the story, I think is super cool. And so yes, I do leave a lot of Easter eggs throughout the book, and that will lead into throughout the series. And no, I love it. So I think it's super fun. If you don't like it, just read for the vibes. It's fine. You can still get the story. It'll be good.
Yeah, it's actually one of those, it's a very good vibe read if you're not into like the high fantasy analytical part, but it's also something that can be delved into and broken apart. That's pretty unique.
Yeah. And you know, Megan's read it and she'll be like, wait, is this important? When I highlighted this, should I have been highlighting this? Did I miss something? I'm like, girl, you're good. I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but you're good. Yeah.
I did catch Easter some eggs. Of them.
Yeah.
So all in all, what is your absolute favorite part of this book? It could be a scene, a moment, a part. Just like, what's your favorite?
Yeah, I just reread it. I finished this week when I was dying of a sinus infection. So it was my comfort read, which is so funny. But I felt like I was reading it for the first time, and that was really cool. So there is a scene that I really love. I call it the bonfire scene. I think it's one of my favorite scenes to read. I think it's really where the characters start becoming themselves. Yeah. If I can say that. Like it's where you start to really feel connected. You always feel connected, I think. I felt connected from the start with the characters, but like you feel like you know them now, and you're kind of starting to see them properly for the first time. So I love the bonfire scene, but I think the last 100 pages of this book had me so enthralled. And I know we always say this about like romantasy and fantasy, and we're like, the last 100 pages like shit breaks loose. I was enthralled. I was going back and reading, and I was like, we still have so much to go, you know, and it's not that far off. And I was just like, what's happening next? And I want readers to feel that. So I'm so excited that they'll read that, because that was like probably my favorite part of the whole book. Not that the book wasn't like enthralling. And I tried to make sure like it wasn't like there was a lot of downer parts. Like everything has meaning in this book, and everything's important. And it's just, you know, it's like one of those things, like I don't like to waste a moment in a story, but those last 100 like pages, like I would say 8 chapters are just like so intense that it was so much fun to write, and I've like never had that experience before, so I loved it. Yeah,
it's very fun to read too. It's a very good, like, because you're right, I got to the point too where I was like, oh, this book is almost done. We still have so much more to go during my reread, but it just it goes boom, 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 boom. Like it's such a good pace, and it keeps you just like flipping the page, and then all of a sudden, boom. Yeah. Boom. That's all I'm going to say. So, question. F, marry, kill, Xaden, Owen, Rhysand. Even though I think I already know your answer.
Oh, no. You've just taken my loves of my life. Well.
I know who you're going to kill. And I'm not happy about it.
I'm not happy about it either. Why'd you give me these? Could have given me Jack Barlow. It'd been easy. But
that's not fun.
You're like trying to break my heart. Okay. Fuck, marry, kill. Okay. He's my husband, but I'm going to just fuck him. Xaden. I'm going to have to marry Owen. I wrote him. Like, I have to kill Rhysand. I'm so sorry.
Tragic. That's so
He's
mean.
lived longer, though. He's lived longer. It's okay. He's had his time. 500 years.
Another one. And we didn't really talk about this character, but they are mentioned in the back blurb, so I feel like it's safe to at least bring up.
Yeah. Go ahead.
F, marry, kill, Tiernan, Goglesh, Owen.
Oh, God. Okay.
Never has she been such at a loss of words.
Never. I'm usually pretty good at this because I'm pretty brutal. I will.
You're like, I'll kill him.
I'll kill him. But these are my babies. Oh man, I'm not fucking Goglesh. Just not on the page. I'm sorry. I'm not. Mama G, no. Okay, so I'll fuck Tiernan. I'll marry Owen again. And I have to kill him. He has to go. I'm so sorry. He's like one of my favorites.
Okay, so a question we always ask authors on here. Can you give us one of your headcanons for your characters? And it cannot be the one that we've mentioned on this podcast before.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I knew which one you were. I had to think for a second. I have a lot. So the reason why this question is actually like created when Megan and I started this podcast was because I have a lot of headcanons about my characters, and I write a gossip sheet. I should have brought it.
You should have.
I really should have. I write a gossip sheet for each character, and like who knows what in the kingdom about this character, and how much do they know? Because gossip flies around everywhere. Gossip is information, people, and if that information needs to be passed around so that there are backstories and what everybody thinks of these people. Why is there a perception of this group of people? Why is there fighting between this person and that person? So you have to have like a lot of headcanons or gossip. So I love it. I live for it. So headcanons. I can give you one about Maeve that's never on page, but Maeve, our main character, plays the flute, and she has for many, many years. So she's musically inclined.
Interesting.
You'll never see it on page, but she does. I thought about this the other day. I was thinking, like, if Owen was sitting around by himself, like building his playlist on Spotify, as we do, what would be like his like, this is me, but like it's so unexpected sort of music. I think he would be like a Bruce Springsteen fan. Like he's like, I'm the working man. Like I'm like the, like this is me, and everybody's like, no, you're like the heavy metal dude, like you're like the hard rock, but like he's like, no, I'm like the working man. I like Bruce Springsteen. So
okay,
I thought about that, like the blue jeans sort of guy. Figuratively,
that checks out. When you get to kind of break Owen down a little more, you can definitely start to see that side of him.
Yeah. So Galgalesh. God, there's so much. I love him. He's so funny. I think so often though, I think that he talks shit about people in a Boscagar prison just to piss off his second warden in the book. His name's Peter. And I think that he just like starts shit with Peter because Peter's like grumpier than him. Like he's Galgalesh is always grumpy, but like if he like hates somebody at like the prison or like they're annoying him, he'll just like talk massive shit. So Peter will be the bad guy and go over there and like be the hard ass. And so I feel like he just goes there and like starts the drama. It's like, did you hear what that person did the other day? Like we should really punish him. Like
yeah, right.
And I feel like he does that. Like he's such a gossiper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Always. Yeah,
I know one I thought of during this last reread, and we kind of prompted because we were also kind of talking about like which alcoholic beverage would your characters be. Yeah. But there's a scene where Maeve is drinking like a beer, and you had like descriptors of like what the beer tasted like and what. But in my head, like if this girl is going to go up and order a beer, it's going to be a shock top.
Oh, yeah.
And that's 100%. Just something in my head. I was like, this girl's ordering a shock top. No shade on shock top. I love me some shock top. But it's definitely like one of your starter beers for like you want something fruity and light. You're not really into that like ale and like IPAs and hoppy things and stuff like that. So like in my head, she's going to a bar and she's ordering a shock top.
Oh, she is, for sure. Yeah, I think that's right. Blue Moon, maybe. She's like venturing out. She's like, I'll get something that seems heavier because it's right. Belgian. Like and she's like, I'll just have Blue Moon. Yeah.
Right. And it wouldn't be something like an Angry Orchard because she is trying to, like look like she knows her stuff, like she's not just going to do like a starter cider. Again, no shade on that. I drink Angry Orchards all the time. But like she's trying to be like, yeah, I drink beer. I'm an ale girly. And then like she's getting a shock top.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, other questions that we commonly discuss, which we have not talked about yet. Can you rate your book on our spice scale 1 to 5?
Yes, I can. Absolutely. This book in the Steel Citadel series, book 1, Land of Frost, I would say it's about a 2. It is a slow burn. Actually, Megan texted me the other day. She's like, would you consider this slow burn? And I was like, listen, I was having people text me saying, finally, they've taken their clothes off. Like, it is a slow burn, but it has payoff. So I would say that it's about a 2 on our spice scale. And then I think as the series goes, it moves up. it would be, you know, move up to a 3 or 3.5. It's moving up a little ways. So, but this one, it has to be, you know, we're developing the characters and relationships, that sort of thing. So it's a 2.
Okay. Now, we kind of already talked about this, but let's just say it one more time. Are there any places in the world that inspired the geography of this world, or anywhere you could travel in the world to be reminded of the geography you've created in your world?
Yeah, you could travel to Ireland if you want the feel of like where the story came from.
Okay.
Really, Megan and I went to Ireland as I was like in the process of getting this book out there, right after I got my publishing contract. So we were like heavy in this book and going to Ireland together, and it was like such a cool experience because I was like, ooh, this is really inspiring. It's like nice and green and stuff, and that's very much like the capital territory of this kingdom is like that very green, you know, like fields, and there's a lot of things that can grow there and things like that. So you could go to Ireland. If you're looking at like different places in the world, I would say Iceland is very much like Romadog. Maybe even Alaska, where they have like 6 months of darkness.
Yeah.
Think about that. Something like that. Tyne-Malacht, where we have our desert territory. That was very much inspired by like Morocco. It's got Moorish architecture. So if you're thinking of like that sort of thing. And then like if you were going to Tonforska, the coastal area, maybe go to the Mediterranean and have a little time there on the coast. Something like that. Forests in Gallimeister is very much like the Pacific Northwest. So think Oregon, Washington, Western Washington.
Is it Forks?
Like Forks, yeah.
Get a Twilight / Land of Frost experience.
Yeah. So you can travel lots of places and kind of get that feel because it is a very diverse kind of like terrain in each place.
So what I'm hearing is we need to do a Land of Frost travel tour and basically come up with an itinerary that visits all of those places.
Yeah.
And that just must simply be our next big trip.
There you go. Sounds great.
Yeah. All right, great. Anything else you want readers to know before the books are in their hands?
Ooh.
That we didn't talk about yet? Anything you just really wanted people to know about the book, the writing process, how it was inspired, anything about it?
Get ready for the ride, I think. Be prepared for the ride. Know that I am sorry, but I'm not. I will kill off characters that you like, always, and I will not bring them back. So please be aware of that. If you are sensitive to that, sorry. You know, I've had people ask me before, you don't kill a lot of people, do you? Yes, I do. It's fine. I like it. So, you know, it keeps me out of therapy. Yeah.
Not that therapy is bad. Therapy is great. No. But hey, if you got free therapy here, just killing off people in books, then that's great.
Yeah, I totally support therapy, but this is my therapy. So yeah, so just be prepared for that ride. Be prepared for anything to happen. And what do I want to tell them? Ooh, you know what? This will be exclusive. If you buy the book, then you might get a little bit of a sneak peek to book 2 after book 1.
What? Gasp.
Yeah.
How would we get this sneak peek?
Ooh, if you buy the book, it might be at the back of the book. You might get a little sneak peek to book 2.
Gasp.
So I'm not leaving you just there.
Good to know. Buy the books. So, in that note, where can we pre-order and buy The Land of Frost?
So many places. You can pre-order on Amazon, especially if you want to read it as an ebook, because that's the only place you will get an ebook is on Amazon. Barnes & Noble, that's a big one. Books A Million has it. Tons of indie booksellers have it. If you want to buy online, you can buy at The Last Bookstore. You can buy the Ripped Bodice. You could buy pretty much any indie bookstore that has an online store. You can go search it there and you can find it and they'll ship it right to you, or you can pick it up in store, which is really cool. But there are plenty of places. I really like to support indie bookstores. So if you are like that, I have a full list on my TikTok and on my Instagram, and you can go support that and get your pre-orders in. For every 100 pre-orders that we do before the book's release on March 18th, my publisher will be contributing $50 to Room to Read. Okay. So that is a charity that helps with getting girls education and education equality. So if you want to pre-order, it does help. A good charity.
It does. So what is your Instagram handle?
My Instagram handle is Whitney Writes Stuff.
Okay.
You know,
And what
very
about
professional.
TikTok? Threads.
TikTok, it's Whitney Welsh Gibbs.
Okay.
So you find me there. Threads, Whitney writes stuff. You can also find me on my website, whitneygibbsauthor.com.
Where I believe you have a newsletter, right? That listeners could subscribe to?
Yep, you can sign up for my newsletter right on my website. You can also sign up for it in my links in my bio on Instagram. So you can see it there. Yeah, all the information's there and lots of goodies there.
I'm so freaking excited. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for this part of the experience. I cannot wait to hear everyone's thoughts on the book and just let Maven Owen's journey be in the world. And it is right around the corner. So congratulations, first and foremost. Super excited for you. And I hope that you just bask in all of your efforts, your successes, and your endeavors.
Thank you.
So before we leave, I believe there is also one more exclusive for our listeners that you wished to announce. And what might that be?
Yeah, since we're doing this big push for pre-orders because we want to raise money for charity, if you pre-order on February 28th, that's this Friday coming up. If you do your pre-order on February 28th, send us a screenshot of that pre-order, whatever it is, from wherever. If it's an indie store, if it's one of the big names. If you send us a screenshot of that pre-order to our DMs, you will get a book plate, a signed book plate from us for your book when it comes. So, we'll get your information. We'll send you a form, get your information, and we'll get you a free book plate out.
Wow, that's awesome. So you heard it here. On February 28th, pre-order the book, take a screenshot of your pre-order, DM it to us on Instagram at What They Wrote Podcast, and you will get a signed book plate. That's so exciting. Thanks, Whit.
Of course.
So that is What They Wrote. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's bonus episode of the What They Wrote podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing the inside exclusive on The Land of Frost by Whitney Welsh Gibbs, out March 18th. If you like this episode, please take a minute to leave us a 5-star rating so others can find us. Our next episode will be dropping on March 3rd, so be sure to subscribe so you do not miss it. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us at What They Wrote Podcast on Instagram and Threads. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.
Bye.
This episode was brought to you by Palmera Travel Group. Our travel advisors will help you to plan any and all travel from A to Z, including bookish travel. Travel to locations found in or inspired by your favorite books. Whether you like to travel solo or want to bring a group of friends, we help you to manage all aspects of your trip. Ready to plan your next bookish adventure? Contact Palmera Travel today at www.palmeratravel.com. That's www.palmeratravel.com. Or on Instagram at Palmera Travel. That's at PALMHERA Travel. Palmera Travel. We plan, you travel.